Oh.
So I'm up. All right, that's good. All right. I gotta stretch my legs for a minute. Hold on. I just retired from the Army, and I get stiff real easy nowadays. So I don't know what the problem is with that. I'm just gonna show you one slide, and then we'll get into some discussion. I want to have some time too for questions. There we go. I'm just going to talk off of this. So my name is Bill Edwards. I'm a recently active Director of Intelligence for Special Operations Command North, which is the TSOC responsible to work hand in hand with U.S. Northcom and then also with U.S. SOCOM. So we had really two parents in our organization there that we were answering to, different, our mom and dad relationship. And it was fascinating. I was brought in as the first colonel of the TSOC to stand up the Directorate of Intelligence. It was a new organization. And so I had this problem set that I walked into where the organization was growing. They had never had an intelligence function at that theater special operations command for that specific AOR, and I had 4 people that I started to build from. So the reason I set the stage with you as that is I just wanted to give you some background on the specific area of responsibility I had at the time was what all these gentlemen are referring to and talking about, where there wasn't a lot of eyes actually going towards the problem, and then we were put into the mix to actually put some eyes on that problem set for the country, right? To give the commander of U.S. Northcom some time and space for decision making with regards to counterterrorism and other threats that we're entering. So what I do now is I just transitioned into the private sector and commercial space, and I'm working for a company that actually does protective design. So it's a nice transition for me where I got to take skills that I have learned over the years and apply them now to the private sector and the commercial space, also working back to the department as well if necessary. So what I'm going to do is, and there's so many things I would like to talk about, but I know we're probably short on a little bit of time. But I wrote a lot of notes, and I'm going to sit down if you don't mind and go from here. But I want you to look at the chart I have up and look at this as a way of thinking. And I think it fits well into the theme that everyone has been talking about today is how do we think about the problem? And then how do we actually do something to get after it? So as a J2, that's what they call intel guys in the joint world, as the J2 responsible for intelligence in the U.S. Northcom AOR from a counterterrorism perspective, I sort of looked at my problem in these 5 steps. Okay, what are the things that you have to do? Well, we'll go through this quickly. You have to build your own collaborative network, your own blue network. You have to build out who you're going to work with, who you're going to communicate with, and how you're going to share information. That's number 1. And I use some examples here of whole of government approach. So that's DoD working with law enforcement, interagency, and you're collaborating collectively. Coalition partners and then willing partners. The other thing is you got to organize your specific internal organization as a network. You have to organize as a network in order to defeat a network or disrupt a network. And what we are dealing with is we're dealing with very, I would almost say, chaotic networks. If you've ever heard of the analogy where we had complicated problems when we first started our war fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they sort of moved into complex, wicked, you've probably all heard the wicked problem. I think where we're at now is probably chaotic, almost chaotic problems, which are very, very, very hard to solve, but we can get after it. And so you organize internally so that you don't go with the typical Napoleonic staff structure and set yourself up in a line and block chart where the colonel's here and what you do is you organize your team so that it works together. Everyone has the ability to provide input to the actual problem set and then work collectively to actually come up with solutions, right? So I got it, I'm moving through. The other piece is you got to flatten communications. This is probably something that U.S. Special Forces does the best, which is communicate across your organizations with as much freedom as possible. So flatten your communications. And then the last bullet on that bullet there is empower your team, right? you can plan centrally, but always execute decentrally. What you're seeing in these chaotic, like I like to call chaotic networks and problems, is these organizations are executing decentrally. They're decentralized in how they execute. And so this is what makes it difficult. The last couple of things on this chart I just hit on real quick is data is very important in the world we live in now. Data is we have to understand data. And so it is very important, and what I wrote on there was one agency's throwaway may be another agency's gold. And so you can never discount the amount or the value of a piece of data, because it may be valuable to me, but it may not be to someone else, okay? So we can build that picture. Last is analytics. You've got, at least in my world, I was a practitioner when I was operating as an intelligence director for a SOF unit. So I was in the mix. I was a practitioner. I was doing this day to day. The charts that Josh showed you earlier, we would develop that type of data for the operator so they could visualize exactly what the problem set is. That was my job. Give that visualization to the operators. And so that something can happen, right? So that there can be an action, and sometimes an action is no action, but there has some decision cycle that's happening there. And so understanding analytics is very important. And then working multiple layers from different not threat streams, different data sources, like finance. Finance is a layer. Biometrics is a layer. There's all kinds of different layers out there that you have to bring that all together in order to see the picture. And then lastly, you build that picture so that it's exploitable at some point, and then what you do is you go into network disrupt or network defeat. And a lot of times what we're doing is we're disrupting networks vice defeating them. It's very hard to defeat and destroy. If you look at the actual definitions of what that means from a military perspective, you're talking at some point, I think destroy might be 100% eliminating something. Well, you're not going to do that in these type of networks. You're going to do the strategic takeaways from each of them. What does all this mean? What are we trying to do? We're trying to give decision makers predictability. All we're trying to do is get ahead of that decision, and so that decision makers, it could be anyone. Think of a CEO of a company, or it could be a commander of a military organization, or a government official, but we're trying to give those people that predictable stance so that they can make the decision in a timely manner, which is really different than the reactionary mode we're often in when it comes to these type of networks. So as I walk through that, I want to hit a couple things on my notes here, because I took some brilliant notes while you guys talked. But the digital domain is so critical. I just want to highlight that it's so critical we understand the digital domain. I won't go any further into that. You probably know what I'm talking about. Let me just kind of finalize here with a couple last things, but all of this has to come together so that we can succinctly understand the problem. Because at the end of the day, countering a threat network is about trying to understand the problem, at least from my perspective. And then getting into these areas which these gentlemen have talked about, which was a little bit new for us at the time, is now expanding. Some of the best partners we've had have been coalition partners, willing partners outside of the whole of government approach. And so that's where we actually make some headway. So I will stop there. Again, this is just a way, I'm giving you a practitioner's way of thinking through how did I try to solve this problem from the position I was in, and then how did I build my team to organize against it, and then what was the end state? The end state was to give predictability to someone that can make a decision. So I think I'm probably good on 10 minutes, and I will stop there, and then hopefully we'll have some questions for all of us on the panel. And again, thank you for allowing me to just talk quickly about an approach, one way to look at a threat network. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.